All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Tuesday morning public meeting. We'll excuse Chairman Dahl. He is out of town today, and I don't see anyone for our invocation, so we'll go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'll all please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to approve minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes.
Your mic's not on.
Oh.
Okay, let's try it again. I move to approve the minutes.
Okay, there's been a motion to approve our minutes from June 16th through 18th. Any discussion? Questions? Oh, okay. All in favor to approve minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, consent agenda. Agreements, contracts, bid awards. We have an interlocal agreement amongst Clark, Cowlitz, and Wahkiakum counties to form the Southwest Washington Workforce Investment Area for the period of July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2029. Board correspondence, we've got letters and notices, a letter dated 6/24 to Adam Stein, appointing him to the Southwest Washington Workforce Development Council, representing the private sector, Cowlitz County. That's a 3-year term, expiring June 30th. Letter dated 6/24/25 to Adrienne Watson, reappointing her to the Southwest Washington Workforce Development Council, representing the private sector, Cowlitz County. This is a 3-year term, expiring June 30th, 2028. Also a letter dated to Corey Giles, reappointing him to the Southwest Washington Workforce Development Council, representing the private sector. That is also a 3-year term that expires June 30th, 2028. Another letter dated to Mike Bridges, reappointing him to the Southwest Washington Development Council, representing organized labor, Cowlitz County. That is also a 3-year term that expires June 30th, 2028. Letter dated to Ted Sprague, reappointing him to the Southwest Washington Development Council, representing economic development for Cowlitz County. That's a 3-year term that expires June 30th. For vouchers, we've got total vouchers in the amount of $5,469,963.29. And that is our consent agenda.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion to approve consent agenda. Any conversation or discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we do have a public hearing at 9:30 this morning. We're pretty much done, so I'll turn the time over to you guys if you have anything that you'd like to discuss.
Good morning, 2-1. Last week, I passed out a proposal to you guys about a potential plan for behavioral health in Cowlitz County. And one of the requests that I had was to put it on the agenda, as well as some other things. And I see it is on the agenda, but I see it's under the Board Account of Health rather than the county commissioners. And I would like to give you a couple of thoughts on that because I object to the placement of that under the Board of Health at this point. Two of the parts of my ask last week during my comments. Number one was that one of you guys on the council take the lead. And I believe that Rick made the comment that no, he felt it was you guys all operated as equals and it should be the 3 of you as opposed to 1. While that sounds good in theory, I have to fall back on leadership principles. And one of the true principles of leadership is you have to know who's in charge. And when you have one individual in charge, that individual will accept full responsibility and run with the ball and make sure things get done. If you have diffused leadership where all 3 of you are in charge, that means nobody's in charge. And that leads to a lack of accountability. It leads to a waste of time, and it leads to a lot of confusion. Now, the other part of that, so I'm suggesting that no, we do need to have a single leader of the 3 of you. The other point that I made is that You guys, each one of you cannot divorce yourself from all the other duties and just take on the responsibility for this huge task that we're talking about. And so therefore, you need what I'm defining as a project manager. Somebody that can actually go out and do the day-to-day coordinating, all of the groundwork, keeping everybody on board and getting all of the comments, getting them assembled, and then bringing them back to the individual in charge. And then the way that gets disseminated and is made transparent not only to the rest of you, but to the public is at the BOCC meetings every week. Now, I see that you initially placed it under the Board of Health, and not saying that, and I don't mean to disparage anybody in the Board of Health or any of the leadership, but my estimation of this problem is this is a huge problem this county and the whole country has been ignoring for years. We need this in front of the public every week. If you put it under the Board of Health, it's going to get buried in a once a month. What you've done, by doing it that way, you've taken all the wind out of the sails. I can see a regular agenda item in here every week where either the project manager and/or which one of you is in charge, leading a discussion on what has transpired that particular week, who you've talked to, what's going on, what direction you're thinking about going, and then allowing us, the public, to comment every week as you're progressing. So we have a way to self-correct or self-direct, whichever way you want to call it. I'm afraid that once a month will not do it. And in fact, Steve Farrell, you worked for Federal. I worked for, or not Federal, but Fiber. Ron and I back here worked for Weyerhaeuser for 30-some years. We know exactly the way bureaucracies work. Nobody's ever in charge of anything, so nobody's accountable. And if you want to make sure nothing gets done, you put it on a committee. I don't think we have time for that. I think we have a crisis. And like I said in my paper, every official that I've talked to in this county, by the time you get around to it, it comes down to we need a mental health. We need some way to deal with mental health. So if you look at all of the stuff that you guys have fallen into, a big part of it falls into what I'm going to call the minutia of the function that you're providing, all the day-to-day stuff. And if you're not careful, before long, that minutia takes up 110% of your time. And my challenge to myself, the reason I got involved in what I'm suggesting to you guys, we need to pick up one large item that we can concentrate on. Rick has got 2 more years. Each one of you has got just over 3 years left. We do not have much time to make a lot of progress. So I'm asking you to get this to the top of the priority pile. One of you become a leader, get yourself a project manager, and get it in front of the public every week in here. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. For clarification, was there something agreed to last week that we were going to do with regards to this? No? Okay. So we're having a conversation about what was presented? Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. Your key word, do. We are here to support you in action, but we can't support you if we don't do anything and put a plan together for doing something. And key, this says behavioral health, not mental health. So we're looking at behaviors and the opportunity for bringing behavioral health into focus in this county. You as the commissioners have the charge of county funds and an organization. We also have a whale of a lot of other public funds out in the county and the NGOs, et cetera. But you are the only ones that can put a limelight on all of those funds and bring them together with the good staff that you have. So now is a cusp of opportunity. The homeless Camp Hope in Longview has been in action for a while. You are in a key position to assess what the success really has been there as they've moved people, what they call success, to permanent housing. I would profess that probably, I assume that significant majority of that is not to independent living, but it's just to another form of subsidized housing. So that's all. Again, our money, we're looking at you taking charge and having a leader to lead the event. Thank you.
So anyway, you guys got to this before I got in the door. Here's the thing about this. I think that we're discounting the work of Gina James. I think that she does a great job. She manages all these things. You have a central point there in her, and I feel like if you'd attend more meetings, you'd see that. You know, she does a good job. I don't always agree with the Board of Health on everything, but we have so many of these things in place already. Like over in Longview, they got this behavioral health. I think the sheriff has that too, right? The cops come, somebody's not really that far gone or whatever, and they send another group of people over there, and the police go on, right? What do they call that team? Anyway, we got that. I'm not sure the sheriff, I think they might have that too, but you know, we've got a lot of levels of this frontline stuff going on. The reason it's not working out, the reason that you can't just take people, and the reason that we have the problem is we're not hard enough on it, you know, and it's like the people that are on the street and are not being moved up to something or something else is because they refuse treatment. We have the Broadway house, we have the teenage center over there or whatever they just built for millions of dollars. You know, we spent a crap load of money on this stuff already. And to me, I'm looking at this, just looks like you're adding another layer, another expensive layer.
Would you think the stuff that's in place right now is great?
No.
Okay.
I think you could. Oh, there you go. I heard you. No, my view's been pretty clear on this. You know, you need to expel the people out of here. You know what I mean? I think these are all wasted efforts, but to add another effort on there is just more waste as far as I'm concerned, as far as the practical part of it goes. The fact is we're relatively small population here, towns and counties, right? We're not a big city. Longview's got 40,000 people, I think, on the taxpayer roll or whatever. That's what they keep referring to, their population. And they're spending millions. Now they don't have money for the fire department. They don't have money for their police. You know, they had to make a new tax, get another police force, which we don't have yet, or they don't have yet. And on it goes. I just see this being another layer of something that A, we don't need, and B, isn't gonna work anyway. And it costs everybody a lot of money. It's a lot easier to run these people out than to try and just let them live on the street. That's not right either, you know? But as a population and the money that it costs, we can't afford this kind of thing. It's just too expensive. And I don't know what this whole proposal is, but you're just gonna add a layer and have another facility of some kind. We got facilities and programs all over the place. And that comes back to Gina James. She's the one that's got all that stuff. I was hoping she'd be here because she could, and I think she'll be at the Board of Health or something, but that's the person that you already have in place that's doing this. Does it all work good? No, it doesn't work good because the people that you're trying to help are unwilling to accept help. And those are the people that need to go. They need to just be out of here. Now, how you're going to enforce that with the way things go with the sheriff and the police department, I don't know. You know what I mean? But this just makes more, and it's more expensive, and we can't afford it. We just can't afford all these layers of stuff. My opinion is, if you want help, it's here. Lots of it already. It's the people that don't want help that are the ones that are out there on the street that you can't help. And it's not our job as a government or your job as a government to solve social issues. You know, Camp Hopeless was an experiment at best. That's what they said when they were setting it up. And of course it doesn't work. You know, it just goes on. And now we're going to get more. I'm for less and send the people out of town. Seattle, Olympia, it's good places for them. That's where they want them. Let's get them there. Get it, you know, they got even more stuff there that doesn't work.
Okay.
I think I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I hear a lot about these people in Longview that they don't want help, that we have support systems. We're already pouring a lot of money into the issue. But the problem I'm seeing here is, what are we helping them towards? I mean, are we pushing them towards a $400,000 house, rent starting at say 1,200, 1,400, an amount that you can't afford on a minimum wage salary or a entry level position, as it were, in retail, let's say? I mean, if these people come and get help, where do they go after the fact? I mean, they still don't have a employment history. You can't put together a chronological resume because you'd have massive holes in there from when that person wasn't able to work. And I just don't see what you're helping these people towards. And as for the suggestion of getting them out of the area, shipping them to Olympia or Portland, grow up. These are our people. They don't come from out of town. They don't come from Mexico. They don't come from Guatemala or whatever. They're our people. People mess up. People turn to drugs because something has happened in their life, or because they've never had a chance to get out of the bad place they are in life. So when you talk about kicking people out of town, you're talking about, you aren't talking about helping people. You're just refusing to take a look at the society that you're trying to push these people into that just won't accept them. I mean, help into what? What are we helping these people towards? It's unsustainable. It doesn't work. And looking at what is effectively deportation from the area, that isn't working currently, and it isn't going to work locally. So take a look at yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Hi, I need to answer both Tim and the gentleman that just spoke on Zoom. I do have quite a bit of knowledge about the different agencies that are out there to help. I believe that Larry's program, what it does is it focuses. Yes, we do have a lot of people out there willing to help, agencies willing to help. And contrary to what this other gentleman on Zoom mentioned, yes, they do help them after they decide that they want to, they need help and where to go. We're working on how to help them actually stand up in the community instead of being on the dole, so to speak. There are places for them to go. We are not pushing them out, but you need to realize, unless you've been around addicts, and I hopefully you have some knowledge of them, there are people who really don't want your help. They want your money or your drugs because they prefer that lifestyle. And that is what we do not want on our streets, to influence our children and to possibly be a safety issue. What we want are people that are willing to change, and we have many agencies that will help them. Larry's idea of focusing these agencies into one effective structure, we're not going to duplicate expenditures. We're going to put them together so that they can help and they have more focus. They have one person, and I really like Gina. She's doing a great job, but she's in a constraint with the state that her hands are tied in many areas. And I understand that, where I believe this organization that Larry's talking about wouldn't have those constraints and would actually be able to focus these agencies into one helpful and more effective push for recovery for some of these people. Again, we can only help just so many that are willing to change their lifestyle. The others, I'm sorry, if they're not willing to change, you cannot make them change. It has to be their choice. Those are the people, we do not want them here. They can make that choice elsewhere. The ones that are willing to change, yes, I think that we need to put them in a structured program so that, yes, they can get help. And we, like, again, yes, we do have many, many agencies that are willing to help. They just need the focus that Larry's plan would help. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Good morning, Commissioners. My comments are, no one has mentioned the purpose of having sort of an inpatient facility that actually does involuntary commitment is one of the ways you get people that are so-called unwilling to change or unable to change to have a chance. Other places like Rhode Island has a program like that where they basically are very firm. They put them in a situation where get clean or you won't get free. You're going to be in prison. And I think they get a choice between going and getting clean. And it usually takes 6 months to a year, and they do it. And they have a very high success rate because the program has support structures and people end up not recidivizing. They end up actually getting better. So there's no waste of money if you're helping people. As a Christian myself, I don't look at dollars and go, oh boy, that's too expensive. I look at how can we make this happen and how can it be realistic? And we also have people that really can't live on their own because they're not mentally capable. They're mentally ill, and we have no place to put them in this area. And the state hospital up north is full, and our jails are full of people who shouldn't be in jail. They should actually getting treatment, but they're being warehoused. They're in emergency rooms getting warehoused because there's no place to put them. So I, as a person who's been a care provider for many years, now retired, of course, I saw the warehousing of these people, and it's brutal and it's cruel and it's unneeded. We can find money. And also, the Trump administration is willing to put out money for places that do the kind of treatment I'm talking about that actually works versus just coddling people or ignoring them, stepping over them on the sidewalk, or just basically letting them die. We have a choice. We can do an organized type of organization that helps people. It can be done. Also, the Native Americans have a ton of money. They're going to be getting a ton of money from the feds for this problem as well. So we should like to talk to them.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, thank you guys for all your comments. I will say we do have a public hearing here in 7 minutes, I believe. But I will say that everybody has brought up valid points, and this is something that it's an issue statewide. If you look at, I just read an article yesterday where the city of Spokane is looking at implementing something similar to this. There's counties throughout our state that are having to reevaluate their processes and the programs that they're funding when it comes to mental health and when it comes to substance abuse. I have been in communications with other county commissioners. I sit on the Great Rivers Behavioral Health Board, and we too are doing the exact same thing because what we're finding is we're putting a lot of money into things and we're not getting a desired result. The homelessness and the substance abuse is getting worse. in some areas throughout the state. And so it's something needs to be done differently than what we're doing. And I agree with that. I have had several conversations with people within our county with regards to this, and I personally have experience with the fact that we do not have a long-term inpatient care facility. And it is needed. I just met with people over at the Hall of Justice, with Dallas, the new drug court coordinator, and we have some ideas that we have been discussing and working towards behind the scenes, trying to get some stuff going. Larry, I read your what you brought into the meeting. I did go through and read that, and a lot of that falls in line with what we're seeing and what we're working towards. Ultimately, there's going to be, this is an emotional subject. It's an emotional topic, and we're emotional creatures. Ultimately, what's going to happen is we're going to have some consent from the public as to what path needs to be taken. I think it's fair to say that none of us agree with the situation as it sits. I think we would all say that something is broken, something needs to be done. And I agree with you in the fact that somebody needs to take the bull by the horns, and we need to start doing something. Gina is a phenomenal resource for us. And I also, in having conversations with Gina and with other people, I also do agree with the fact that we have a lot of money that is spread out, that if we consolidated that money and put it towards one effort, we might get a desired result. I look at that as in my career, when I'm talking to people about paying off debt, everybody's, they have the tendency to send $50 or $100 to all their credit cards, as opposed to taking that $400 and putting it to one card, getting that card eliminated, and then moving forward. So I think the concentration of funds and resources, there's definitely something to that. When you look at how much money the county is spending, the municipalities are spending on homelessness, on substance abuse, and on mental health. So I'm in agreement. Something needs to be done, and we need to work towards coming up with a solution. I am all in favor of a long-term rehab center for mental health and for substance abuse. Nobody that I have talked to disagrees with that, actually. Having experienced it in my own personal family, having to go out of state for it because there's 2 facilities for kids in our state, it's just crazy to me. So I agree, something needs to be done, and we will have discussions, make appointments, do what we need to do to move this conversation forward, so that we have the opportunity to help those people, because ultimately they're people. As Jim said, they're people. They need help. It's hard to help somebody who doesn't want help, but at the same time, having been around and having an addict as a family member, that addict is not your family member at the time. They're an addict, and that addiction speaks first. And we need to address those situations on an individual level as opposed to an institutional level, because on an institutional level, I really don't feel that we're making a difference, even a dent in what's taking place. So anyway, thank you for your remarks. And are we ready we can go ahead and get started for our public hearing, public meeting. Okay. You.
All right, good morning, Board. Anna Lunde, Cowlitz County Public Works Right-of-Way Agent, and today's public hearing regards a 10-year non-exclusive franchise agreement between LS Networks, Lightspeed Networks, also known as Instastar, and Cowlitz County. This 10-year non-exclusive easement is for telecommunications. Services provided are internet, ethernet, voice, carrier networks, and managed services. And the type of equipment they put in the ground is fiber poles, vaults, conduit, splice cases. They do have some aerial that attaches to PUD poles as well as a few self-owned poles. And so that is what is being presented today. They originally had in 2013, they started a 10-year franchise agreement that expired in 2023. So they're hoping to have a new franchise agreement to continue their services for Cowlitz County.
And it's pretty typical to have these franchise agreements when we have easements with utilities being shared and
Yes,
things of that nature. Yeah. And this is above ground, is that right? They're running above ground cables?
it is both. They do have some below ground, primarily is above ground. They do have an individual contract with the PUD to utilize some of their poles, but that is outside of county function. They still are required to have their own franchise agreement.
Do you have any idea how many customers they have?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Okay, we will go ahead and open the public hearing to public comment. Nobody online. Okay, seeing no comment, we'll go ahead and close comments, public hearing. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the resolution granting Lightspeed Networks a franchise agreement.
All right, we have a motion. No comment. We'll go ahead and call for the vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a Board of Health meeting at 10 this morning, and just so you guys are aware, tomorrow's Wednesday meetings will be canceled. We don't have a quorum, and that's the 1:30 and the 2:30 meeting. So as far as updates go, July 9th, 2:30, we have a Rotary Foundation of Woodland at Scott Hill Park Sports Complex. And Thursday, July 3rd, the office is closed in observance of Independence Day. So, okay, if there's nothing else, we'll go. Yes.
Is public comment still open for the BOCC?
Yeah, go ahead, if you have something.
I just want to jump back to the conversation from before the public hearing. I understand the concerns brought up about the finances of a facility like this. I have the same concerns, but I think I look at it, there's so much money being poured to it in different areas. You know, the jail has to have extra support staff and I don't know, just all these different organizations. If some of that money could be sort of reallocated towards something like this, a mental health facility. And I would love to have the conversation of how can we break down the barriers so that possibly a private corporation could come in, because if the government runs it, it's going to become very convoluted. I mean, that's just the way it goes. Or maybe a private public partnership or something where it's not a county-run facility on its own. I think having a private, I don't know, something with a private, I don't know what that would look like, but just kind of throwing it out there. The other question I would have is I don't want to leave sort of this meeting with, okay, yeah, something is going to happen. Like, what are the next steps? Like, what needs to happen next to move this forward? Like, does a workshop need to be scheduled or what? So I guess I'm just throwing that out to you guys. What do you see as the next steps and what can we do to give input to that and to support that?
I can tell you that I have been in communication with other county commissioners, and I am working to get support from them and their boards with regards to this concept that we're talking about. Not necessarily, not what Larry brought forth, but the whole concept,
Similar thing,
the topic itself. And there is some buy-in from some of the other county commissioners and what we're doing. I can tell you that the amount of money that is being spent that is not allocated for this is also a variable that needs to be taken into account. And what I mean by that is, how much money does it actually cost business owners and
Yeah.
everything, there is a, for lack of a better term, there's a byproduct, if you will, that is created by not addressing the situation.
I agree.
That also costs society money.
Yeah, yeah.
And that money, personally, I look at that, I look at how many times I have to pay an employee to go and clean up the hallway where somebody was sleeping and clean up feces and all the trek through
Absolutely.
the office and the carpet. There is a cost for all of that
Yeah.
stuff. And I believe that the taxpayers are getting double dipped on it because they're paying taxes to go to a program that isn't doing what they're paying the taxes to do. And then they have to pay money out of their own pocket to
100%.
clean up a
Yeah,
lot of the
yeah.
mess.
And businesses impacted, like I know downtown that like they probably make fewer sales because of the issues that are down there because people don't want to go there. Yeah,
So it is I mean, it is a financial obligation, and being a fiscal conservative myself, I don't like adding layers of bureaucracy, as Tim said, to our government.
I don't either. Yeah,
But we're spending the money right now and we're not getting really anything
Yeah.
for it.
yeah,
So I'm for trying something different to see if we can get a different result, as
Yeah.
opposed to continuing down the path that we're on, throwing more money at it and not getting a different result.
Yeah.
And I think that you'll find there's a lot of people in the county who have influence over these types of things that are in agreement with that. It's time to try something different. And if there, I can't remember what the name of the program is, but look it up. Spokane is starting to do something similar to this
Good.
because they're noticing that something's got to change.
yeah. So when you said you've talked to other commissioners, I'm assuming it's not these two,
No.
it's commissioners from other counties. So are you thinking like a multi-county sort of, I don't know,
Yeah.
deal
We're
or-
looking at everything from
Yeah.
detention facilities to behavioral health.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, and I appreciate what Tim was saying. There are people who don't want to be helped. And that's going to be true with any population, right? You're going to get that. And you know what? Those people need to go to jail or they need to move on. Like, I agree with that. But I do think there's a group there that could be helped. And if we can start that ball rolling and have a facility, and there are, to the gentleman who spoke online, there's a lot of people from other areas that come here. My husband was on a trial a couple years ago. It was a murder trial, and the guy was from Florida, and he said, I came here because there's a lot of free things here. So there were a lot of people from out of the area. So figuring out too, how can we serve our area and not have it be sort of a magnet for, for the world to come to. But yeah, I would love to hear like the next steps. Like if you, as you're doing those talks, if you could maybe just touch base on it every week and say, hey, I talked to XYZ and what can we do to support that or help or whatever, that would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and let me touch on the issue of transient.
Mhm.
Okay. At church, I was responsible for the transient population in Cowlitz County for 3.5 years. And I can tell you that I bought multiple bus tickets and train tickets and took people to different areas because they were going back home.
Yeah.
Multiple. So
Oh, I
and I
know.
would probably say 40% of the people that I helped were not from here.
Oh, yeah.
I bought a lot of tickets to other places on the train and on buses.
Yeah.
So there is definitely truth to that. To Jim's point, I think I would like to think that what he's referring to is they're in our community, so they're our people.
They're part of our, I understand that.
Part
Yeah.
of our
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I understand that,
Yeah.
because them being here impacts all of us.
Yeah.
We're all,
Yeah.
in this boat together.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. I think we just have to be careful about, and I don't even know what this would look like, but if there's some facility here that's helping people and gives, this care, I don't want Portland shipping their people here. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want it to sort of be this open door of we're gonna cure the world because we all know that's not realistic. How can we help the people that are here and avoid the buses being shipped in? So I think that's maybe more the concern that I have, but anyway, yeah, I would love to hear like each week, like who you've talked to or where things are in the process. That'd be really helpful.
I think that one of the issues here is because there are no facilities readily available, the goalpost gets really lowered. And so you can't put people in and get them help.
Yeah.
You end up leaving them on the street. And people that should get help are out walking on the street and yeah, some people want to be that way and live that life, but there's also people that can't make a good decision for themselves. And that maybe even involuntarily put into a facility and help them, it would be an option if you had the facility. One of the things on a statewide basis, like Steve was saying, there's a lot of discussion going on is how do we fix this problem? Talk's not going to fix it. Somewhere we have to move a step forward and say, who's going to step up to the line and take care of this? If we only had to deal with the people from our community, that would be a very limited number. And there are a lot of people from outside the area. I don't want to push people out of our area that are our people, that people
For sure.
from this area.
Yeah,
I don't want to push them on somebody else, but at the same time, I don't want other people pushing their people on us either.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
So if you
Yeah.
could balance that out and say, hey, where did you come from? Go back where you came from and let them help you.
Yes.
If they had the facilities. So the complication keeps coming back to where do you put somebody when you don't have facilities?
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. I don't know. I think there could be a whole discussion around that. You know, if we had a facility and if there were extra space, what could we do with it? I don't think there's going to be extra space in any facility. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. That's
If we had
beyond what
a
I've thought through,
facility
but-
that would house 100 people, it'd be filled up overnight because
Immediately.
other counties would be saying, hey, we'll pay you to take our problem. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if there could be like something with other counties that help with the financial burden, maybe that would be worthwhile looking at. I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing out ideas, but anyway, I think it's a worthy thing to continue and I don't want it to just end with, yeah, that's a great idea. I want to keep hearing the updates of what you're hearing and how can we support you and help you? So,
One of the conversations that I have had, if you guys remember when Trinidad and his team were here
Mhm.
and they were talking about the involuntary, they have the power to do that. There's two places that they take those people right now, the hospital and jail.
right.
And guess what? The term warehousing people, that's essentially what we're doing. And the problem with the jail is we take them to the jail. And if somebody does go through and say, yeah, this person has mental health issues, they're the only ones that can be in a cell.
I
So
know.
now it creates issues for us being able to take in people who are breaking the law
Exactly.
into our jail system.
Exactly.
People at the hospital, same thing. So the one thing that I, in my conversations with people that we keep going back to is what Commissioner Farrell just said, where do we put these people?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
there
I
isn't
agree.
anywhere for that right now.
I agree. I totally agree with that. And it is a huge, I know, like, I think it was maybe a year ago, maybe it hasn't been that long, that the commissioners, the previous board, had to approve this huge budget change and salary changes for the people in the jail because of everything they're having to deal with. I mean, they're having to deal with so much overtime and all these mental health issues that they're really not trained. That's kind of not their area of expertise. So yeah, just all the finances that would be saved through those lightening their burden, maybe some of that money can be refunneled towards something like this. Anyway, you get the idea.
Yeah, and there's another part of this that I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of, and that is, and it's not the money part, these are human beings. These are people who need help. And in the program, the way that it's set up right now, going into the institutions that they're going into, they're just going into a holding tank until they've calmed down or until they've sobered up or whatever the situation is, and then they go back out onto the street. And we're not doing them any justice. We're not treating them as individuals who have a need, a medical need. And that's the one thing that I really liked about what you had put in your paper, Larry, is that treating these people as individuals, just like if I went to the doctor and I had a need, he's going to treat me individually for what my needs are. We don't have that for these people currently, for the people who need that help. And I think that is a key component to making this work.
So Steve, when you've gone to the different districts or parts of the state, how are they doing it? How are they
Everybody's
taking?
Spokane is the only one that I have seen that has instituted anything differently. They're all in the talking phases, trying to figure out
Just-
what they're gonna do.
Just like us then.
Right.
Okay, now I grew up by Western State, similar, very, not real close, but fairly close. And I know there's a lot of bad things were said by that, about them, about that. But my mother was in there for alcoholism, okay? And honestly, there's a lot that went, it was quite a few years ago, but still, I know you said warehouse, but sometimes, like we have 3 gentlemen in Castle Rock, one explicitly that, I mean, he's not doing himself any favors by doing what he's doing. And it would be definitely against his wishes that he would go there, but he really would, he would benefit by being warehoused. I mean, I feel bad about it, but he's, no matter what the weather, no matter what happens, he's right on the corner of the Shell station by exit 49. And I mean, the pouring rain, the cold, the heat, whatever, he's not taking care of his own welfare. And so being warehoused basically it would be to his benefit, even though it sounds really bad. Sometimes a person is mentally, basically, that's what they need. And I know you don't want to hear it because they are a human being, and we need to take care of their emotional needs as well as their physical needs. But there are moments and there are times, because I visited my mom out there, that mentally that's basically all they can handle is being warehoused. They're living in their mind. I mean, psych was my major in college, okay? And although I didn't graduate, but it was my major. There's a lot of mental anguish in being an addict. My mother was, and still of alcohol. Still, the thing of it is, they can't handle themselves. They have a point where they have to be, I mean, they want to be cured, but a lot of them have gone past that. And I know that's a very sad thing to accept, that some of them can't be saved. But I've been there, I've seen it, that the alcohol or the drugs have basically fried their brains. And we, as a community, need to realize that these people, they need help. Just as much as anybody else, just as much as somebody that can make that decision to be well. And I really think that a facility is about the only thing that we can do for them. There's not that many in that level of dependence. So it's not going to take a huge facility, but there are those. And if we don't want to see them on the streets laying around, just zoned out, we do need to address that level of dependency. And again, the ones that we can get to help, of course, we need to have a focused program for them. And I think Larry's is an excellent program where it brings all the agencies together. All this money needs to be focused into, not just out, like you were saying, out. It does far less value than if it was focused on the major issues instead of all these little peripheral fires. If they put it all together, they could get maybe part of the wildfire taken care of. But again, we do need a facility that this small amount in our community can go to, because we do have those people that have gone over the border, that they just basically, they cannot make the decisions for themselves. Again, we have the one that's very, very blatant in Castle Rock. Actually, there's 2 others that I've talked to. They're not making any sense. They aren't home mentally. They need help. And I think this facility, a facility doesn't have to be big, but we do need one. Thank you.
Mhm. I will concede the warehousing. It's obviously, there's many layers to people's needs. But we have to do that with an end result in mind. What are we trying to accomplish is more of what I'm talking about. Because we can put people in the hospital, we can put them in the jail, and then they're just right back out. We're not accomplishing anything. So we need to have a focus on why we're putting them in here. What are we wanting to accomplish so that we know what we're working towards.
Well, there's a difference between somebody who's got mental health issues from drug addiction versus dementia or those types of diseases for elderly people that get into that problem. And so adult family homes or those types of things would be an appropriate place for somebody that's up in years and their quality of life has gone down. And you would hope that they would have family people that would be responsible enough to help them. That doesn't always happen, I know, but that's the way it should happen. Anyway, go ahead, Larry.
What kind of disease is it where we got a bunch of retired senior citizens that keep coming to this meeting? Maybe we need a facility. A couple of comments. I agree wholeheartedly that we do not want this long-term to be a government-led program. We have had no leadership. That's the reason we're in the boat we're in. But at this point in the process, we need somebody at your guys' level that can bring people together and start the organizing process. And if you look in the paper that we presented to you, we kind of vague, but reading between the lines, there's all kinds of different organization structures that this could be converted to once we actually get it organized. So yes, none of us really want to add another layer to government, and I certainly don't. And I think probably neither one of you do either. So I want to make that point clear that we don't necessarily need to stay a government program. We need to get the thing organized. And then you guys, as part of whatever leaders you bring together, figure out the best way to do this long term. The other thing I wanted to point out was resources. When you start looking at all the different organizations that are involved in this, I'm going to use St. John's as an example. I don't know the exact numbers. I did spend some time with their director of behavioral health, but I forgot to ask him this number. They currently have 22 beds devoted to, I'm going to call them broadly, mental health. I don't know what the breakdown is. But if you think about the resources that St. John's has to have to house 22 people 24/7, that has got to be a horrendous amount of resources that they're putting to that. I do know I talked to one NGO agency that has inpatient care, and I don't quote me on the numbers, but I think they've got inpatient for 8 or 9 or 10 people, something like that. So those are just two examples. If we put this thing together as a government, private NGO consortium of some kind, and we come up with a plan, all of those resources could be focused in addition to, whatever you guys decide to do with the mental health tax, which, as far as I understand, is what's funding the 6 behavioral health people in Longview, 2 for the sheriff. Marin's got 2 people in the county. I don't know what the funding source for those is, but they're on the county payroll somewhere. So by the time you go around, and that's part of the bringing all of these people together and figuring out who's doing what and come up with a plan. Part of that is figuring out what resources do we already have committed to this, and how can we do it in a centralized version so that we're probably where the biggest duplication is in management. Every one of these places you go, you got the worker bees that are actually doing something, and then everyone has got a layer of management that is managing. Okay, that's good. I'm glad to hear that, but that is not going to direct patient care. And that's where we need to get a handle on. What are all the resources that are already devoted to that? And I think once you start pulling together, you're going to find out we've got a whole bunch of resources already available if they're wisely used.
I got 3 minutes. So I'm just going to say, it was mentioned that Rhode Island has this program, and they do, is a working program, but their choice is take treatment or get out. That's how it works in Rhode Island. I know over at the Veterans Board, they have like almost $1 million, if not more than that by now. They can't find a homeless veteran to help. I mean, they just got no connection to get out there or they're in any around, you know what I mean? There's a bunch of money that just sits there and it's a tax money, which, you know, don't like that either. But the fact is that there is a solution to this, and I see these guys as people. And, you know, we go on about being homeless or whatever, but, you know, they are people. And the way that they're being treated or managed is not humane. It hasn't been in the decades that I've been watching this go on. There's a solution. I've mentioned it before. I'm not going to go on every detail, but it's tuberculosis towns. We used to have tuberculosis towns. You had tuberculosis, you went to this town. You couldn't leave. And then we took care of you, you know. We medicated you, we fixed your problems, delivered babies, performed burials. It's the whole society thing. And eventually we solved tuberculosis, and these towns got converted into cities then that are, Pasadena, California is a kind of an example that you would think of. You could have heard of Pasadena. That was a tuberculosis town in the beginning. That's the solution that we have to have. My point, it goes on, is not really government's job, especially at city and county level, to solve this problem. It's not, and that's why for decades it's been failing. And so, and one last point, now this just goes back to this day over at Longview City Council when they're doing their special resolution on this stuff. You know, I just see a lot of rich people, a lot of people with properties, and a lot of people that want this some kind of thing for the taxpayers to do. Why don't you just do it yourself? Or, you know, and where is the organization of all the churches in all this? You know what I mean? Because really, if you're a Christian, why can't the Christians get together and take care of this? Why you got to put it into a government thing where you know it don't work? We already know government has never solved this, never will. It's just not, it's because it's not a government job. And so, you know, my challenge would be for the amount of people that got out there, if all these Christians that come around talking about being a Christian, just go take one. Take them to your house. See how that works out for you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody, for joining us this morning. We'll go ahead and adjourn for our Board of Health meeting.